This is 24 Lives Per Second. We're going to have a quick look at Wreck-It Ralph. Wreck-It Ralph is a new animated, supposedly children's film. I suppose people would... I think it's DreamWorks. Is it DreamWorks?
It's, I think it's... Oh, hold on, let's just...
Yeah, why not? It's DreamWorks. Anyway, the premise, I believe, is that Wreck-It Ralph is a character in a computer game who decides he doesn't want to be that character in a computer game anymore, so he sort of quits and has some sort of adventure. I've seen the trailer. Sonic the Hedgehog and Pac-Man were in it. It looks pretty good. Claire, is it good? Is it as funny as it looks?
The premise of this film is basically a very similar template to Toy Story, where we've got, at the end of the day, people leave the arcade and all the characters kind of meet up, and it's very similar to Toy Story. When no one's looking, this is what their lives are. So from that place, we've kind of seen this type of film before. But for someone who's been playing games since goodness knows how old, it was really nice to have a look at all the characters together and to see I mean, I can't remember all the names of them, but all the villains from the Mario. We've got Sonic the Hedgehog zooming around the place. It's a love letter to games, but unfortunately, that was about it. The rest of it was still very. It felt very dated, the way that the story unfolded. It was a really good concept of a hero who doesn't really of a villain, who wants to be a hero and has to go to meet up with other villains, and basically similar to how you would if you were an alcoholic or someone who had some other vice that they wanted to get rid of, and having to deal with it. And it's kind of like we're watching a film about villains who don't want to be villains but have to be villains. So it was slightly confusing messaging, whether it was okay to be a bad person or not. And so when the part of the film was a very clear-cut storytelling, and the other side of it was, so they're bad, they're going to have to be bad, but they don't have to be bad if they're bad. So it was a little bit confusing in the way of how to actually bring the story to an end. And when it did, it was done very abruptly, very simply. There was no depth to it at all, apart from the fact that if you're a bad guy, you don't have to be a bad guy, but you're a bad guy.
Right.
So
does it do that Toy Story thing where it says let's all be chums and don't ever be creative? Does it do that weird Toy Story underlying thing they have where you're not allowed to use your toys other than for their specific purposes and such?
I just felt like these characters were in a prison, and they
it just sounds really depressing.
Well, it's funny because I think the hardest part of the obviously animation and children's films in inverted commas have come a massive distance since like the Toy Story came out.
Yeah.
But from my point of view, the biggest problem with them always is the end. It's always the how are they going to wrap it all up, because the nature of it is that it does have to be wrapped up nicely. And yet, we don't, as older people and adults, we don't go to the cinema necessarily for that. You've got to remember who they're at. And I often find myself watching, films like WALL-E, for example, which is a beautiful, piece of animation. But I remember sitting, and as soon as that first half an hour, 40 minutes had gone,
that's what Pixar do, isn't it?
I was like, now you've actually got to tell the story. You've got this fantastic idea. Same with Up, and from what I've kind of seen, Wreck-It Ralph has this great premise, and it's really lovely, and you're appealing to everyone because you've got the games in there with the in-jokes, and then the children will love it anyway because they're recognisable characters. But then you do have to take them somewhere that probably has to end in a very nice way, and that's always my problem with it.
I mean, the saddest part for me is I don't mean to go and pick up kind of the negative things about it, but I couldn't help it when when one of the things they said was, and they put posters up all around the place where the communal place where everyone could go, if you are outside of your game and you die, you're dead. And then horrible. But when you're in your game, you can renew yourself.
Right.
And I just thought, God, this is slightly like they had all this lovely. The animation was superb, and everything that they did was, the artwork was, you couldn't fault it. Even the characters had their different types of gravity and physics, which was quite sweet. But just some of the storyline, I just thought, gosh, this is a little bit sinister underneath this really nice beautiful graphics, you've got these things warning people all the time. So for me, it was kind of a little bit taking too much from Toy Story, not having anything too deep, which is fine for the audience who it's showing. But I think, you look at things like Paranorman, and you look at Toy Story 3. Look how far they come. I know they're aiming at slightly different groups of people, a slightly older demographic, but this didn't really. It felt like it was going back a couple of years, back to the old Disney, and looking at how Disney are just doing something very sweet again and very sickly.
Yeah.
But we better have something quite deep in it, or let's put they're going to die if they come out of their game and stuff. It's just like, this is a bit, could have softened that up a little bit, and even though these heroes were these villains wanted to be heroes, but they were stuck in the prison of being villains forever. I just thought maybe it's me looking too darkly into it, but this is what I was getting from the film. So yeah, but I don't think children will look at it quite like that.
I think that's the difficulty we face in kind of reviewing it in that way. I think, and like I say, I think the bar has been raised tremendously high by things like Paranorman and other films in the last kind of 12 months that came out. And like I say, from looking at it, it looks just like a more standard Disney release, and that's fine. Like you say, it's I'm sure it's still watchable and probably enjoyable on a lot of levels. It just I never leave even things like Toy Story. I struggle to leave them satisfied, as a whole. But like I say, that's just me. Like I say, I would still pick this up probably when my nephews and nieces watch it. In a few years when it comes out on DVD, I'd still sit and watch it with them and probably enjoy watching it with them. I think that's part of the fun, is watching it with the age group that are supposed to watch it and kind of enjoying it kind of through them. It's something that I've started doing a bit more. And you can show them films that, like Disney Lion King and things that you watched when you were younger, and kind of they gain enjoyment from that as well. So I suppose there's that side to it as well.
And there's also a killer virus that's eating the games up as well. It just keeps.
That sounds like a barrel of laughs, doesn't it?
This
is Jane Lynch good in it?
The characters in it are brilliant. John C. Reilly and everyone. That it's fine. The voices and the characters and that whole concept on one level is great. And as I said, a little bit too much like Toy Story, but the rest of it I just found it's just a little bit too dark, but a bit too much conflict. But yeah, but it's worth a watch anyway.